Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, before we get into the meat of this video, let me just say one thing. The Pride Month video. The big Pride Month video. You see, here's my issue with this Pride Month video. It can be... basically what it is LGBT firsts in US politics, but it's not that easy to draw a line on when do I stop. Do I go for every government position? Do I only go for the firsts? Because if I go through only the first, I might be missing more prominent recent ones. Sometimes information isn't entirely clear. Like, for example, there's one, I'm not going to say what it is, but there's one part where there's 3 possible answers. Do I put them all in, or do I not? Basically, the Pride Month video will happen, but instead of being released this Thursday, the 20th, it will be released Thursday of, the 27th, which may or may not be mentioned in this video for a different reason, but anyways, that's how that Pride Month video is going to go. In order to satiate you guys, I'm making a different kind of Pride Month video for this Fireside Chat. And, well, you know what the title is, so we'll get to that when we get to that. But before we get into that, let's get right into the news. The first 2 stories involve a certain libertarian-leaning Republican, Justin Amash. Justin Amash leaves the Conservative Freedom Caucus. Representative Justin Amash on Monday stepped down from the Conservative House Freedom Caucus less than a month after becoming the first Republican member of Congress to say that President Donald Trump has committed impeachable offenses. "I have the highest regard for them, and they are my close friends," he told CNN. "I didn't want to be a further distraction for the group." Amash's series of tweets in mid-May shook Capitol Hill as the conservative Michigan lawmaker said special counsel Robert Mueller's report established multiple examples of Trump committing obstruction of justice. Amash was later insulted by Trump for his opinions, the president saying he's been a loser for a long time, and faced blowback from top Republican officials. He's now facing a primary challenger who is touting his support for Donald Trump. The House Freedom Caucus is a group of about 3 dozen hardline conservatives created in 2015. Its members played a key role in ousting then-House Speaker John Boehner that year and had a hand in crafting the GOP's ultimately failed American Health Care Act of 2017. Today, the group has had some president's most adherent defenders, such as Ohio Representative Jim Jordan and current Chairman Mark Meadows of North Carolina. Now, of course, this was kind of inevitable. You see, Amash and, he's never really been loved in the Republican Party. He's been liked at the most. You see, he's always been kind of like a hardliner on, libertarian-leaning issues. Whenever libertarianism has to come at odds with his party, he'll go against his party. And that's a good thing, actually. When you're going up against the Republican Party, who wants to kill a lot of innocent civilians in Middle Eastern countries for no reason, and you're like, hold on, no, or maybe if they want to make it so that nonviolent drug offenders get thrown in jail, and you're like, hey, how about we don't do that? Full on Amash for doing that. But ultimately, here's one other, it's not the news story, but it's basically the breakdown of that primary. You see, a recent poll of that primary shows that his opponent in the Republican primary, James Lauer, is now holding 49% compared to Amash's measly 33%. Which, if it's entirely accurate, could mean we may be saying goodbye to Justin Amash. But there's also the bright side. Maybe Amash finds a new party to take him up on his offer. And that leads into another story. Representative Amash stokes talk of campaign against Trump. Representative Amash, the lone Republican in Congress to call for President Trump's impeachment, says he has no desire to play a spoiler if he launches a third-party bid against Trump in 2020. I have no interest in playing spoiler. When I run for something, I run to win, the Michigan Republican told The Hill on Wednesday as he descended the steps of Capitol towards his office. I haven't ruled anything out, Amash replied when asked if he made a decision about a possible presidential bid. But if he does run, some of his GOP colleagues worry that the 5-term libertarian-leaning congressman from Grand Rapids could siphon tens of thousands of votes away from Trump in a general election, potentially moving the Rust Belt states that Trump won in 2016, such as Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, into the Democratic column next year. Some Republicans have acknowledged that a Amash candidacy would be enough to hand the White House to the Democratic nominee, be it former Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, or someone else. Now, this ultimately could be a good thing. I mean, libertarians, they've kind of had a increase in regards to their voter turnout. Every election year, except for the 2018 midterms, their numbers go up. And, ultimately that's because a lot of libertarian-leaning Republicans who, think that the U.S. intervening in all these interventionist wars and how the drug war is bad, or even the ones that just say, we lost the gay marriage battle, they're kind of realizing the national GOP isn't really getting them anywhere. Same could go for the Democrats. I mean, a lot of the younger generation, hint me, is realizing that the Democratic establishment isn't necessarily the bringers of change. They're not necessarily going to help the poor and the needy as much as we would want them to. But, there's always going to be the hardliners that are going to say, no, we have to stay in the Republican Party. And I don't really 100% believe that the Libertarians and Greens will take a huge leap unless someone like Amash or, Bernie actually takes the charge and leads them forward. Because if they don't have a big enough name, the party's going to flop. I mean, even with the Libertarians, they've always tried to have, their new face, like in 2008, they had Bob Barr, and in 2012 and 2016, they had Gary Johnson. It got them somewhere, but it didn't get them to the place they wanted to be. Next story, because, that's a topic to discuss for a different day. This is not really a news story, but it's a speculative news story. Democrats buzz about AOC primarying Chuck Schumer. Top Democrats tell Axios on HBO they expect Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez may eventually primary one of the two New York senators, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer in 2022 or Senator Kirsten Gillibrand in 2024. There's not much else to say about that because, again, it's all speculative. Nobody knows for sure if she will. Nico House has said, and Nico House and Fox News say it's legit, but, technically nothing has come forward as of yet. So, yeah, if she does run, she should. I think she should run, because ultimately that would be a good thing. If we have we can't have I'm a centrist neoliberal as one senator and then a faux aggressive in the other Senate seat. It's better if at least we have faux aggressive and real progressive. That would ultimately be better in the grand scheme of things, because, that'd be good. Anyways, now let's move on to a story that's kind of iffy on some things. House Ethics Panel reviewing allegations against Grijalva. The House Ethics Committee is reviewing allegations that Representative Raul Grijalva, the Natural Resources Committee chairman, created a hostile work environment from drinking on the job, his spokesman confirmed on Friday. The ethics investigation comes after Grijalva arranged for a female staffer to be given $48,000 severance package when she threatened a lawsuit alleging Grijalva was frequently drunk on the job and created a hostile work environment. The Ethics Committee voted last year to dismiss allegations that Grijalva had misused funds in paying the former employee in 2015. But Grijalva's spokesman, Jeff Nolan, told The Hill that the ethics panel is now reviewing the underlying investigations. Though it hasn't opened a formal investigation, Nolan has said that the allegations were related to workplace drinking and did not involve sexual assault. Grijalva said in a statement that he expects the review to exonerate him from wrongdoing. I welcome any further look into this matter because I am confident that it will fully exonerate me, and I am excited to see it completed as soon as possible. I look forward to the full vindication and to prove that I have always created a positive work environment for my staff and conducted myself professionally. A person being accused of something and then letting the investigation happen? This sounds strange. Nah, of course I'm kidding. You know, because Grijalva's doing the thing that you're supposed to do. Let the investigation happen. If you're innocent, go ahead. This kind of reminds me of allegations against Keith Ellison when he ran for Minnesota Attorney General. You see, Keith Ellison, he was a really progressive guy in the House, and then a lot of people like me and Justice Democrats were like, hey, maybe you should run for Senate. But he said, nah, I'm going to run for Attorney General instead. So he was running for Attorney General, and then his ex-wife said, hey, he beat me. I have video footage of him beating me. And the Keith Ellison just walked up to her, well, I mean, not physically, but like, he was like, okay, let's see the footage. Yeah, no. Okay, here's an FBI investigation. Let's see where this leads. And nothing came of it. So, yeah. When you're innocent, you know, you let the investigation happen. And even if okay, so Raul Grijalva, he seems to be innocent. But I mean, if it is revealed that he isn't, that's not going to entirely look good for congressional progressives. On the bright side, he's not a member of he is a member of the Progressive Caucus, but he's not the chair anymore. He gave that position up to be National Resources Committee chairman. So anyways, now let's go across the pond for a second. Chuka Umunna, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, joins the Liberal Democrats after quitting Change UK. Former Labour and Change UK MP Chuka Umunna has joined the Liberal Democrats, saying that he was wrong to think millions of politically homeless people wanted a new party. The Streatham MP said that he massively misunderestimated just how difficult it is to set up a fully fledged new party without existing infrastructure. He was one of 6 MPs to quit Change UK, founded in February last week. It gained only 3.4% of the vote in the European elections. In contrast, Liberal Democrats, who, like Change UK, campaigned on a strongly pro-EU message, saw a surge in support, coming second after Nigel Farage's Brexit Party. Mr. Umunna's move to the Liberal Democrats brings the party's number of MPs to 12. Asked if he would hold a by-election and re-stand as a Liberal Democrat, Mr. Umunna declined to answer directly, but said that he has listened to his constituents and their biggest issue was Brexit. Now, Umunna has actually criticized Liberal Democrats in the past by, just allowing the Tories to hold their austerity, but now he's running with the Liberal Democrats because he's actually smart and is actually doing something that could actually benefit his political movement. So anyways, here's the thing about Change UK. Change UK has changed their name again. First, they were the Independent Group. Then they became Change UK. Then they became Change UK, the Independent Group. Then, their new name is the Independent Group for Change. Make up your mind. This party is going nowhere. The EU elections had Change UK flop hard. Chuka Umunna, he's being the only smart member of Change UK. He's realizing, if we're gonna be, it's kind of my same viewpoint with Movement for a People's Party. They're like, oh, let's just start a new political party so that we can bring progressive change. Or you could join the one that already exists, that has actual political activism and movements behind it, as in the Green Party. But nah, we can't join that one. Now, you could argue maybe Chuka should join a different political party that's for remaining in the EU, like the Green Party of England and Wales, or the Scottish National Party, but he's not Scottish, obviously. Or at least I don't think he is. But obviously he's also running to the center, so of course, if you want to be a centrist running on pro-Europeanism, Liberal Democrats is your best bet, because, they're ultimately going to be the best result. They took the number 2 spot from Labour. Labour was expected to win the EU elections for the UK. They were supposed, even after the Brexit party came around, I was like, well, at least they'll get second place. No. They were swept to third. I mean, ultimately, if that's the thing. Brexit is, of course, a very complicated issue. I'm kind of an agnostic on Brexit and kind of in the middle ground on it. But people know where their best bet is. If you want to leave the European Union, go to the Brexit Party. They will give you leaving the European Union. You might not agree with their specific reasons for leaving the European Union or whatever, but they'll leave the EU. Want to stay in the EU? The Liberal Democrats are the ones that are going to give it to you. The other parties, they're kind of shifty on Brexit. Conservative Party, of course, wasn't in favor of Brexit. They're the party members themselves can choose what side they're on. Theresa May, she was actually for remaining in the EU. And so was Corbyn. Now, Corbyn and Theresa May both had to switch their positions on the EU. Now you might say, wait, I thought Corbyn was still for remaining in the EU. Well, Corbyn's pretty much if we're going to leave the EU, we got to do this, this, and this. Especially considering there's a lot of big issues, considering there are other parties that are we need to stay in the EU. Scotland and Northern Ireland voted in droves to remain in the EU. But now they're leaving. Things are not looking good for the UK. Speaking of things not looking good for the UK, the Tory election. You see, Theresa May resigned, so the Tory party, Conservative Party, has to choose a new leader. And they're on their first ballot, but if their first ballot is any indication, I was right. Another prediction I made was completely right. Boris Johnson tops first ballot in Tory leadership contests. Mr. Johnson received 114 votes, significantly more than his nearest rival Jeremy Hunt, who came second with 43. There's nothing else to say. Boris Johnson, the Trump of the UK, if you will, he's heading up to be the next Tory leader. He will be going up against Jeremy Corbyn in the 2022 general election. Bring it on. Let's go. Let's see where this goes. I was right. Boris Johnson's going to be it was obvious that he was going to be it. He's been the leading chargers for conservatives to be for Brexit. So, yeah. That was inevitable. But let's go back over to the US to talk about something big. 2020 update. First, I'll give you a little bit of talking points about the Greens. Alan Augustin dropped out. Sorry to hear. He endorsed Daria Hunter. A reverend by the name of Edward Pinkney is formed an exploratory committee to run with the Greens. But anyways, that's not obviously what you're here for. You're obviously here to talk about the Democratic debates. 24 major Democratic candidates are running for the Democratic nomination in 2020. The rules were as follows. 20 candidates 65,000 donors, or 1% in 3 national polls. If you meet one of those criteria, or both of those criteria, you get to be in the debate. And now, not only did the deadline finally come to an end, but they even divided the candidates up into the debates. So first, the 4 losers, 4 candidates are not going to be in the debates. Montana Governor Steve Bullock, former Senator Mike Gravel, Mayor Wayne Messam, and lastly, Seth Moulton, former representative. The rest made it in the debate stage. Bullock is actually trying to fight it because here's the thing. Bullock, I'm going to give you a little bit of a semi thing about Bullock. Bullock technically met one of the criteria. You see, Bullock actually did get 1% in 3 national polls. However, the first poll that he met that criteria for was actually a poll that he wasn't in. You see, people actually had to say, I would vote for Steve Bullock, and he was given that 1%. The Democratic Party said that they would be excluding those kinds of polls. Same reason why they would exclude, a similar rule was applied to Emerson College polls, which, if those were included, Mike Gravel would have won by the poll threshold and not even by his donors. And if they actually did decide to include him, it would lead to an inevitable tiebreaker, which couldn't be solved because one of the candidates, Eric Swalwell, met the exact same qualifications. So he and Swalwell would have had to either both been included or neither be included, because that's just how it would be. Inevitably, they had to draw the line somewhere, and Bullock didn't make the cut. Which I'm not entirely mad about, because who cares about Steve Bullock? But anyways, there's inevitably something big. They announced that they would draw 2 groups. Candidates' names would be pulled out of a hat, and they would be put on 2 debate stages. From what I understand, there was actually some more specific things about the rules. Like, apparently candidates that were polling at 2% and below were put in one hat, and candidates who were polling at 2% or higher were put in a different hat, and then they drew it that way. But people who were representing all the candidates were included at the drawing, though it was not televised, which kind of might raise a few eyebrows, because if it wasn't televised, then you kind of make it seem like you're hiding something. To which many people actually do believe, yeah, they are hiding something. But we'll get to why people believe that they're hiding something when we go into the actual debates itself. First, Group 1, 10 candidates will be debating on Wednesday, June 26. Senator Cory Booker, Senator Elizabeth Warren, former Representative Beto O'Rourke, Senator Amy Klobuchar, former Representative John Delaney, Representative Tulsi Gabbard, former Housing Secretary Julian Castro, Representative Tim Ryan, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, and Washington Governor Jay Inslee. The second group would be debating on June 27th, the next day. Governor John Hickenlooper, entrepreneur Andrew Yang, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Representative Eric Swalwell, author Marianne Williamson, Senator Michael Bennet, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, former Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Kamala Harris, and Senator Bernie Sanders. Right off the bat, there are some questionable things. For example, out of the top 5 candidates, 4 are on one night. Buttigieg, Sanders, Biden, and Harris. And on the other night, it's just Warren. Now, many people have kind of been saying, this seems a little too, coordinated. especially considering there's been a lot of news stories in recent, news cycles that show Warren's now seen more favorably, despite the fact that in 2016, these supposed same positions were too radical and too far. And even now, these positions are too radical and too far, to the point where apparently John Delaney is like, Warren is great, Bernie stinks. So, that's kind of raising a few eyebrows. Personally, I think, there seems to be a bit too much Warren love, especially considering it, like we all know how this news cycle goes. This is pretty much how it is. So, do you like Joe Biden? Nah. How about Kamala Harris? Nah. How about Pete Buttigieg? No. How about Joe Biden again? He seems pretty cool. The Obama years? Nah. How about Liz Warren? Ooh, now you've piqued my interest. It's due to the fact that Warren's positions are relatively close to Bernie's, ultimately, that's going to lead to a lot of people being like, I have to choose one or the other. And similar things can be said to Tulsi Gabbard, but, Tulsi's, got, 3 voters. Okay, I'm being a little too naive, but, Tulsi's voters are kind of smaller in regards to Warren's voters, especially considering Warren's in the top 5. And I've relatively considered her high on the list of people who could actually win not only the nomination, but beat Donald Trump as well. Gabbard has the latter down, but I don't think she has the former down. Now, I hold Warren in slightly more favorable skills than, say, Nico House. Nico House is Warren's, just canceled. No Warren for me. Whereas TYT sees her as the only alternative to Bernie. Both sides of that argument are completely inaccurate. That's kind of the thing that I found out I am. I'm the centrist in regards to progressives. Tulsi is evil. Tulsi is the greatest hero of all time. I'm neither. I do find myself leaning more in one way than the other. I usually lean favorably in regards to both of them. Warren and Gabbard. But, Gabbard's is more... I lean more towards the favorability in Gabbard's case than in regards to Warren. I still do hold Warren to have semi-accountability on regards to the fact that she didn't endorse Bernie. But then again, there's nobody who endorsed Bernie. Okay, there's 5 people who endorsed Bernie. And Tulsi has the bragging rights to say, yes, but I was one of those 5. So, yeah, she has that. And I'm kind of half joking, but you know what I mean. Now, ultimately, what are my expectations for the debate? We're going to get to that in a different, the one that is right before the debates is, I think, the one that I'm going to do that in. The one that would be on the 24th. But I think one thing I should say is, who's really going to gain out of all of them? Well, ultimately, the way this debate is structured seems to actually benefit 2 people. Well, it can benefit a lot of people. Here are the people that it appears to benefit the most. First, this way benefits Elizabeth Warren, obviously, because Elizabeth Warren, her stage is full of nobodies. I am better than Jay Inslee. I am better than Bill de Blasio. Wow, such impactful words. Yeah. That's pretty much her debate stage. The only one that I think could give her a run for her money is Tulsi Gabbard, but I'll get to that when the 24th rolls around. And, of course, this also benefits... before I get into who it kind of benefits... Warren actually technically benefits the most from this. Because she doesn't have the hard hitters. The only hard hitter on her stage is, again, Tulsi. But then again, literally the entire debate's probably going to be, Tulsi, you are Assad apologist. Bad, Tulsi. Excuse me, that wasn't even a question. That was just you saying something, Rachel. Yeah, that was a question. Answer, Tulsi. That's pretty much going to be every question for Tulsi. But the two people that it seems to benefit kind of really well, but also kind of not, is Andrew Yang and Marianne Williamson. Because they're on the same debate as Bernie and Joe. Yang, this was his plan the whole time. He said it in an interview that he ultimately wanted to be on the debate stage. Someone could type up in, be like, who is the Asian man sitting next to Joe Biden? That was his plan the whole time. Although, Marianne, of course, it also benefits her because she's a smaller candidate. But, you know, when you're on the same debate stage as Bernie Sanders and Andrew Yang, you know, you're kind of going to get left in the dust, Marianne. I don't think her campaign's actually going to last longer than this debate. But I mean, she had a good run. She made it on the first debate stage. It's more than you could say about Steve Bullock. But I mean, you know, man, it's probably going to get left in the dust. Now, does this benefit Joe Biden? No. I honestly don't think it does. It doesn't benefit Joe Biden in the slightest. Which is kind of why I kind of believe, I do take the Democrats at their word in saying that it was mostly random. Mostly, I think that the Democrats knew going into this, Bernie and Joe are going to be on the same stage. There's just no reason to denying it. But everyone else will be kind of random. And it makes sense the way you look at it. Sort of. You can honestly see it just like, you have these two people that you know is going to be on one stage, and you just kind of pull names out of a hat to see who ends up filling the rest of the gaps. And, you know, this is just how it came out. But here's the thing. Joe Biden's the frontrunner, obviously. Whether you say he's miles ahead of Bernie Sanders or it's neck and neck, he's still kind of the frontrunner. I say the best way to look at it is subtract 10 percentage points just for the fact that he's VP. Then you can see, like, that's more reasonable percentage points for him. You can leave those 10 percentage points somewhere else. But anyways, Bernie and him, they're, you know, neck and neck, but, you know, I mean, neck and neck in regards to certain things, but not in the poll numbers, because poll numbers are usually skewed. But ultimately, this benefits not just Bernie, who I think benefits also the most from this. Well, kind of. You see, Bernie, I think he gets the second best recognition of all of them. Because again, Warren's got no competition. Bernie's going head to head with the front man, and he can directly say, this is why I am not Joe Biden, because Joe Biden, he sucks. He can say that. That's what he can do. But here's the thing. Remember, he's not facing off just against Joe Biden, but he's also got Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg. Well, I think Bernie Sanders does really well at debates, for the most part. Yeah, he really does well, for the most part, again. But Joe Biden, he's gonna get railed because he's facing off against the other guys, all of the candidates that are kind of like, they could reasonably be at the top 5. Like, remember, 4 out of 5 of the top 5 are on the same debate stage, and when one is considered the front runner, the other 3, no matter how much they disagree, they're going to tag team to get rid of Joe. Now, ultimately, that, again, I would think benefits Bernie, because then he would be the front runner. But then again, Kamala Harris would then have a chance to be second place. I mean, regarding Warren's recent poll surge, maybe I mean, she'd probably stick at third. But anyways, that's pretty much how I think it would benefit them. And the next episode of Fireside Chats is going to be me giving like hopes and thoughts and kind of expectations about the debate. And then after that, I'm going to do the episode that breaks down the debate, my notes and stuff on July 1st. So, yeah, that's going to be how those next two episodes go. So, let me think. Is there anything else about the debate I can, like, as far as right now, we can discuss? I think most of the candidates are going to stay relatively the same. The only people that I think are, like, again, the top 5. Logistically, only the top 3 and Yang and Williamson benefit. Buttigieg, like again, I think Bernie does well in debates, especially when there's a lot of people to point to, because he has the facts to back up his claims. I mean, Buttigieg has like, I'm a gay veteran. Kamala Harris goes, yeah, I was a public attorney. Joe Biden goes, I have experience. And then Bernie's like, although one thing we do kind of need aggressive Bernie. You know, the Bernie that's not necessarily mean, but you know, the one that's like, excuse me, I'm talking here. Because, yeah, ultimately, yeah, because Bernie knows the people are with him. He's got the facts to back up his claims. He's ultimately probably going to win that debate. And I think after that, we're going to see some people drop out. I don't know who. Maybe it's just the ones who didn't get in the debate that are probably going to leave. Maybe, you know, Marianne might get in that dropping out action. But, I mean, people are going to leave in the race. Now, let's move on to the smaller party of the day. Well, not smaller party, but, like, smaller presidential candidate of the day. I'm going to leave a poll in the episode that actually says if you want this segment to continue, because I'm really running out of ideas on this part of the segment. And you'll also leave it open to suggestions if you want to replace it with a different segment. Mark Lynn, they're writing candidates for the New Hampshire primary, running with the Write-In Party. They're pro-life, Second Amendment, and for smaller government, pro-education for America's kids. The end. That's their political opinions. Write them in. Whatever. So anyways, you obviously know what this video is about. It's the inevitable thing, and it's to celebrate Pride Month, no less. Blaire White. You obviously probably know who Blaire White is, and if you don't, here's a brief synopsis on who Blaire White is. Blaire White is a transgender conservative YouTuber. She makes videos talking about feminism and right-wing stuff. She's a Donald Trump supporter, considers herself center-right, and I mean, like I said, is transgender. That's her biggest drive. She's a transgender conservative. She's appeared on stuff like The Rubin Report. She's appeared on Shane Dawson's show. She's appeared in a lot of other things. Like, she's appeared on Steven Crowder's show a couple times. Like 6 times. But, I mean, I don't watch her stuff. Watched her stuff like, I really didn't watch a lot of her stuff at all. I barely watched some of her stuff to talk about her in this video. I mean, I did get some basic knowledge of Blaire White, because here's the thing, I mean, you know, unsurprisingly, Blaire White, I'm not her target audience. I'm not conservative and I'm not transgender, so I'm not really in her target demographic. You know, I mean, she might say, oh, but she doesn't have a target demographic. She's just trying to go inside of the political views and making everybody all together, be happy, so we can all talk about our politics. I mean, fair point, but I mean, she mostly talks about feminism and SJWs and, all that boring crap. So, yeah, she's not really the ideal YouTuber I would watch. Even if they're right-wing, I find some kind of entertaining stuff. I mean, the right-wing YouTubers, they're all kind of boring now. I mean, I'm subscribed to Freedom Tunes, but his content's getting boring now. Used to really like his content, but now I'm getting really bored by it. It's probably just the SJW phase of the internet passing. But anyways, she's also kind of a vlogger, to be quite honest, because, she doesn't always talk about how SJWs are ruining the political climate. Sometimes she just talks about her life. And, good on her, because, she has every right to do so. Oh, yeah, and I can actually say that I'm treating her way better than right-wingers treat her, because Candace Owens, when she was on the Rubin Report, would refuse to call Blaire White a she.
Right, so I just want to start off because we just had a conversation off camera. She posted something that said my predictions that I talked about. I'm not comfortable using the she pronoun, not because it's not anything to be disrespectful. It's just that a lot of people that follow me don't know that Blaire is trans, and a lot of people that follow her maybe don't know me, vice versa. And I think that it betrays the audience when you make it sound like this is a petty catfight and there are two girls sitting across from a table, when in fact it is a grown man sitting across from a grown woman who has had a lot of things to say about me when I've never even met you or said a negative comment about you.
Yeah, tell me why all these LGBT people seem to, for some reason, go to the right wing, even though they literally refuse to accept you. Dave Rubin, he consistently, his supposed friend Ben Shapiro keeps saying, I refuse to participate in your sinful behavior, when he talks about Dave Rubin and his husband. Candace Owens literally just said she refuses to call Blaire White she just because, like, out of no disrespect to you. Bullshit. You just don't want to. And if you don't want to, just say that. Just say, I don't want to call you she because I don't think you're a girl. I think you're a man who's pretending to be a girl. Just say that. Don't pretend to be like, well, I'm doing this for a moral good reason, and I'm trying to be, transparent to my audience. This is supposed to be about Blaire White, and I'm just shitting on Candace Owens again. I mean, I don't mind. I always like shitting on Candace Owens. Now, the thing is about Blaire White is that her Wikipedia article is scarce. Hey, what's up, guys? It's scarce here. So I have to take a lot of her views on stuff from Rational Wiki, which, isn't entirely the most accurate 100%, but, it's the best I got. So, I mean, I'm not going to take everything at face value, because there's some things where it's like ethno-nationalism, and I'm like, that's probably not entirely true, so I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to say that. I mean, most of these are quotes like, the left is fighting a fight that transgender people don't want, when in fact they do want it. And surprisingly, she's made a lot of videos hating on trans people. Mostly, she hates what are so-called trans trenders, people who are being trans because it's a trend. Because that's totally a real thing. That's totally not made up in the slightest. She's also she's gone so far as to, make fun of trans people for not passing, as in, not actually looking like the opposite gender, which, no offense, Blaire, but not everyone can afford a surgery to make yourself look more feminine. Not everybody can really afford it. You mentioned this in a recent video. I think maybe she might have recently, like, laxed in some reviews. But I mean, she's made a lot of, like, she's made like 5 videos about Riley Dennis, and, you know, because transgender, she's probably a transgender, and has misgendered Riley Dennis a million times, which works well for conservatives who are consistently saying all these bad things about transgenders, and of course probably would like, you know, a transgender person to say all these things because then it'd make them feel better. You know, because if a transgender person is debunking all this bad stuff about transgenders, then it must be a left. It's all the left's fault. It's all these leftists and transgenders. I never really understood that whole transgender. It was a term I literally heard when I was doing research for this. There are people who legitimately believe that someone will go so far as to transition just because it looks fun. It's like those people who are like, yes, a person's literally going to go through hormone therapy, grow long hair, and or get hair extensions, put on makeup, put on a dress, to sexually assault a woman in the woman's bathroom. It's not going to happen. You're pulling just random things out of your head, just like you're pulling up your porn and then saying that that's the reason why it shouldn't happen. That's it's really weird. Like, someone like literally goes like, there's a specific scenario I have in mind. This specific scenario of how a person who is transgender is going to sexually assault a woman in the woman's bathroom. Wait, hold on. This is a very specific scenario. Did this happen? Did you know anybody of this happening? Is this your fantasy or something? No. But I think technically the biggest thing that she's known for is the fact that one day she posted a video on her YouTube channel that had her and her boyfriend, I think they're married now, or fiance or whatever, you know, they were wearing MAGA hats, you know, Make America Great Again. And then someone reportedly threw drink in her face. Now, a lot of people have been saying that, yes, drink was thrown at her face, but, you know, there's a hefty debate on whether or not this was an actual leftist who was mad at her, or if it was staged for her video. I mean, to be fair, Joey Salads staged that whole thing about, you know, the whole thing about, you know what I'm talking about, like where he made a bunch of black people beat up his Trump car because, you know, Trump cars are their thing. I mean, I know, you know what I mean. It's just sometimes I have, like, can't click everything in my head at once. So, why specifically her now? Why do I talk about her now? Well, for starters, you know, Pride Month. Second of all, it's kind of tied into my Steven Crowder video, because recently she's made some shakes in the news, not really the news, but like she's made some waves due to the fact that she has actually been, one, it seems that there are a lot of videos of her trying to distance herself from politics. I mean, the biggest thing that is explained is like, one day she made a video where she explained that she wasn't really going to post that many political videos anymore because right-wingers were being like taken over by people who didn't really believe what they were saying. They were putting on an act, a show. Like, they weren't like lefties, but the views that they were portraying were not accurate to their actual political beliefs. So, you know, they're fakers. They're posers. They're tools for right-wingers. And, you know, I think she mentions like how she kind of felt like one because she was going on these people's platforms, promoting them, and, you know, being like, hey, this is my cool buddy. And many people pointed the fingers at Dave Rubin. because, Dave Rubin's the biggest tool of them all, who sold out literally all of his political beliefs for some of that cash money. But of course, there's also, she also recently made a video about Steven Crowder, saying how many of Steven Crowder's personal views on gay marriage, or gay rights, or gay people in general, aren't entirely what he, said, what he logistically actually believes, and how she doesn't necessarily go on Steven's show anymore because, Steven's not, an honest actor. He's a faker. He's a poser. That's what she's pretty much saying. Not that his views on stuff attacked her personally, but, they just weren't accurate. Although I could be remembering this wrong. I remember watching this, earlier in the day. I'll link this specific video in the description because I think it's better if you hear it from her mouth and not just me aimlessly rambling along. I mean, there's one thing about her transgender thing that really bothers me, especially considering I watched a video of hers that really kind of made things a lot more damning in her, against her. You see, transgenders, a transgender would be someone pretending to be trans because it's a trend. I'm not saying that Blaire White is pretending to be trans. No, that's not true. But, she says explicitly that she's not going to get she's gotten cosmetic surgery, breast implants and stuff, but she's not going to get the old snip. Of course, obviously being because, one, it costs a lot. So, it's not necessarily, you can't really do trans gatekeeping on, you didn't put on this dress when, you're trans gatekeeping. That's weird. It's it's really a spectrum in a lot of regards for a lot of human stuff about sexuality and gender identity and stuff. She also doesn't like non-binary people and a lot of stuff. She really, she's pretty much, that's her thing. The trans, she's the trans Milo, I guess. To be frank, kind of. She's kind of the trans Milo. Well, I don't necessarily want to just equate her to be that, but it's kind of like gay, I was gonna say gay Rubin. Dave Rubin is the, token gay as well as Milo. Jordan Lee Peterson is and Candace Owens are the token blacks. That's what they are. Blaire White's kind of the token trans person for conservatives. I'm not saying that she doesn't believe her things. I think if she's going to go so far as to talk about how certain people like Dave Rubin or Steven Crowder are fakers, she at least legitimately believes the things that she believes. And also, here's the thing, she's also actually faced transphobia for her beliefs. And, Blaire White has expressed, how she doesn't really like the fact that, the LGBT community, as well as specifically trans people, aren't necessarily fans of hers and, don't really like her. But, technically, she should be in favor of that because they're not judging her because she's trans, they're judging her because it's ironic. It's actually the opposite, really. Right-wingers like Candace Owens, they're oh, she's trans, ergo, no. But the left is treating her as her own individual, a conservative who expresses beliefs that they don't like, ergo, no-go for me. They're dismissing her because of what's on the inside, not what's on the outside, or what's in your pants. But if Blaire White is, that's just the basics about Blaire White, to be quite honest. There's not much I can really say because I'm not really a fan of hers. To be fair, she doesn't want me to be a fan of hers. Or maybe she does, I don't know. Maybe she wants to have a audience from all across the political spectrum, and maybe I'm just being closed-minded. But I mean, I don't know. Blaire White's inevitably going to be on her side of the internet of, alt-right. No, not alt-right. Not alt-right, but like the, anti-SJW group. But she's also going to have, like, the token spot of, like, oh, I'm the trans person. So, yeah, that's ultimately Blaire White for those who want to know about Blaire White. Happy Pride Month! Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Quora, or check out my articles on the Independent Political Report.